thank you very much for showing up. My name is Joseph Aprile, and I would like to read excerpts from a book which is actually an anthology of novellas, and the book is entitled At the Fringes of Experience, and what I would like to do is read short excerpts from each of the stories. So I'll begin with Bronx Memories, which is basically kind of my own personal memoirs growing up in the Bronx in the 40s and 50s. The Tenement. I spent all my impressionable and tumultuous youth in the sharply bounded confines of our flat. The apartment's windows faced a backyard whose only plant life was that tenacious enough to blossom through the cracks in the concrete. The most conspicuous aspect of the backyard was the clotheslines with the wondrous colored garments that hung from them. The prospect of installing a clothesline was a dangerous one. A vagabond roamed the back alleys yelling, "Hey, line!" beckoning housewives to thrust their heads out of the kitchen windows. He charged $2 to risk his limbs shimmering up the poles to affix a metal or ceramic pulley with the same aplomb as if he were conquering Everest. Often my mother would be leaning out the kitchen window most indelicately, with a bag of clothespins by her side and a few pins clenched between her teeth, while hanging up the sheets or Dad's boxer drawers. As the line was pulled sagging with its wet load, the pulleys made a high-pitched squeal. The environment of that apartment was rich with sounds. The washing machine was a circular porcelain tub with a massive rotor that churned the water into a frothing sea and started with an incredible whirring sound. Above the washer were wooden rollers that were used to wring the freshly washed clothes. These rollers were turned by a large wooden handle. Sheets would invariably get hung in these rollers, creating no end of aggravation for my mother. Winter was also ushered in with certain characteristic sounds. There was the clanging and hissing of the steam pipes, risers, and radiators. These radiators were ornate objects that adorned every room like religious icons. The cacophony of incipient heat rushing through the heating ducts began early in the morning to abate the damp New York cold. On those mornings when the heat failed to come up, which was not uncommon, tenants would be stationed by the risers that ran up the 5 floors through all the bathrooms, banging on the pipes and voicing their collective displeasure. Underlying the sounds and ceaseless activity of the tenement was, of course, humanity in all its shrill and relentless diversity. It was, in fact, a remarkable litany of characters that lived in this very singular building. The next story I'd like to read excerpts from is entitled Bradley, Stimpson, and Marie. This is a kind of a fantasy. It is a fantasy, and I will read some excerpts from it. This is basically the character Stimpson. The city's central district was replete with old abandoned factories. In the midst of this commercial sector, there were a few streets of brownstone tenements. In these tenements, plagued by cunning rats and prosperous roaches, lived a loosely bound group of tenants who were mostly reclusive in nature, each living within himself, each carrying his own hidden past. They were pariahs living on the edge of an oddly shared madness. One of these tenements lived on the 3rd floor of the corner brownstone in apartment number 17. His name was Stimpson. Stimpson lived on scraps and willpower. He was unemployed and paid for whatever few expenses he had from his savings. He was not, however, always in his present position. Stimpson was once a successful man. In fact, he had been an Ivy League professor, well respected in his community. Stimpson had been a theoretical physicist of considerable stature. Unfortunately, the nature of his work drove him farther and farther into his own mind, which for him was quite dangerous. He was nervous by temperament and often on the edge of panic. For a time he was quite comfortable nestled within himself like he was. Stimpson's psychic infrastructure began to crumble, however, when he first started to read Kurt Vonnegut. He admitted in an entry in his diary that Vonnegut's book, Ice 9, is what finally did it. The author had unwittingly forced Stimpson to look at the absurdity of the world around him. He was unable to reconcile his own idea of himself with the nature of the world as he began to understand it. Ultimately, the contradiction cost him everything. First, he became inexplicably belligerent to both loved ones and peers. Ultimately, he lost his family and his profession. His social demise was a result of his failure to successfully deal with his mind once it had escaped the tunnel he had so painstakingly created for it. Stimpson was dying. He was succumbing to all the losses and traumas of his collapsing inner life. His dying first began to reside in his stomach and eventually spread to his gallbladder and kidneys. His dying was rather ridiculous, but no more ridiculous than the world he inherited. He wrote obsessively late into the night. His diary grew and grew. Crouching over his book, he often felt a sharp pain coursing through his abdomen, and he tried to ignore. Frequently, under such conditions, he entered a trance-like state where his mind melted into its surroundings and the world became tolerable, even enjoyable. It was a kind of psychic epilepsy. It was at such times that he began talking aloud in a bellowing voice. The ancients foretold it in ebony scrolls. It can neither be denied nor acquitted. The soul of the shepherd resides in the bear. Heaven itself broken into by vandals. The sky weakened from the abuse of rockets. Light no longer golden. I am a warrior to my own words. I am meat to my own apprehension. At such times his neighbors would bang on the walls and scoff him. Only Marjorie understood. She lived directly below Stimpson, and although she could hear him clearly through the papier-mâché walls of the apartment, her sleep was not seriously jeopardized. In fact, Marjorie rarely slept, and when she did, it was brief. Marjorie was an artist. Her paintings were done in brilliant pastels, and her works displayed a flaming opulence, an irresistible compulsion to live. Marjorie's life was punctuated by very real terror arising from a paranoia that was barely submerged below the face she showed to the outside. As a young woman, she attempted suicide on a number of occasions and was committed to a state mental institution. There she was brutalized by a system that demands orderly behavior from troubled minds and extracts it by whatever means are necessary. Marjorie was subjected to electric shock therapy, solitary confinement, and drugs. It was the latter that was so destructive to her sense of personal autonomy. Ultimately, her release was based not on any discernible improvement in her behavior, but rather on changes in the state's fiscal policy. In this way, Marjorie found her way to the present. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed what I read, and remember that you can purchase the book, and the easiest way would be to go to my website. That's at lvau.com. Again, lvau.com, where everything can be purchased conveniently online. Thank you.